Hi everybody. So what is ChatGPT? You have probably heard about it. It's an artificial intelligence chatbot developed by OpenAI. Its language model has been trained using a huge amount of content. So words, sentences, conversations found from various sources on the web. You can start a conversation with it and it can also generate content for you. You can ask questions and this is very important for this video, also programming, coding questions. From my first tests, I must say I'm really impressed by the accuracy of this tool. To be honest, it's the first time in many years I'm so impressed by a new software or a new IT product in general. Okay, that was ChatGPT, but what is DaDaBIK? DaDaBIK is a no-code, low-code platform. I am the founder. You can use it to create with little or no code a web application, typically on the top of a database. The typical use is for creating internal tools. It could be a simple CRUD or a very complex CRM or ERP or even a dashboard, for example. So why should we integrate ChatGPT with DaDaBIK? You will see in a moment with examples what we can get. But the general idea is to extract knowledge from an application created with DaDaBIK, for example, a CRM, asking questions in natural language. Something like, who are my most important customers? So without using SQL and without using any additional interface, only text. Okay, I'll share my screen now and I'll show you the work I've done so far with many examples. So here is a classic CRM application I created with DaDaBIK. Let me log in. We have a dashboard here with some summary data. We have a funnel page. We have our customers here classified as leads, prospect, and converted leads. We have our sales. The data you see here is stored in a database. In this particular case, it's a MySQL database. So for example, when I click on all customers here, DaDaBIK reads the data from a customers table I have in this database linked to this application. And when I click on leads, DaDaBIK, for example, reads the data from another table. Actually, in this case, it's a view, not a table. But, you know, this is completely transparent for the end user. So, as you can see, for each customer, I have first name, last name, email, phone, country, age, and other information. What I added, let me hide here. What I added here to integrate ChatGPT is this box. This is not currently available in the standard DaDaBIK version, the one you can download from dadabik.com. It's just you know, an experiment that I'm doing. Okay, so here I can ask questions about, let's say, the entity I'm looking at right now. In this case, questions about customers. Let me give you a first very simple example. But let me show all the customers. There are just 7, but it's easier for checking the results. So for example, how old is my oldest customer? Here we go. We got the the answer here and the SQL query the system has used to get this information. Let's check, the answer is correct. This is our oldest customer, and he is 58 years old. Okay? In a moment, I will explain how this can happen, but first of all, let's clarify that there isn't any predetermined hard-coded rule here. So let me ask the same question in a completely different way. Something like, hi, I need the age of my oldest customer. Can you help me? Thanks. All right. We got the answer anyway. We can change maybe youngest customer. 23, that's correct. And really, I could try all the variations you may propose, and probably it will work in almost all the cases. We will see at the end of this video that small variations of the words can actually have an impact on the interpretation of the text. Well, I would say it's not real interpretation anyway, but this is another topic. Now, how this can happen? What I write here is sent to ChatGPT. I get an SQL statement in return, this one. I execute, DaDaBIK automatically executes the SQL statement on the database connected to this application, and the result is displayed here. I'm simplifying a little bit. What I have just said is not entirely true, but I want to add details step by step because it's easier to understand. So, first of all, if I just send this to ChatGPT, I don't get the answer. Let's try. So let me paste here the same question. It doesn't work, obviously. Without context, it can't do much, obviously. Who are the customers? It doesn't have the data, basically. The thing is that DaDaBIK has all the context ChatGPT needs. DaDaBIK knows that the underlying database is a MySQL database. It could be a Postgres database or a SQL SQL Server database, but in this particular application is a MySQL database. It knows the scheme of the database. It knows that the customers table has certain fields, name, email, phone, age, and so on and so forth. It knows many other things, but to solve this little question, what I have mentioned so far is enough. And very, very important, if you are thinking about the privacy of your data, I don't need to tell ChatGPT my customers' data. I just need to give some context about the schema of the customers table and ask for an answer in SQL. Then DaDaBIK will use the SQL to get the information. So behind the scenes, DaDaBIK creates automatically a little story to send to ChatGPT. Something like, assume we have a MySQL database and we have a customers table having these fields, ID, name, email, age, and so on and so forth. Can you tell me the age of my oldest customer? And this last part is just copy and paste of what the end user wrote here. And then I add something like, DaDaBIK adds something like, give me the answer in SQL. So the ChatGPT's reply will be just an SQL command that DaDaBIK in turn can use to get the result. This is still a simplified version of what DaDaBIK does. What I said is still not completely true, but again, we'll complete the puzzle soon. Let me give some more examples. For example, tell me the average age of my customers. Okay, it's 39 and something. If you are familiar with SQL, this is the query that has been used, and that's correct. Select AVG age from customers. Okay, let's try something much more difficult. Tell me the 2 most important countries. Okay, what does important mean? Important in terms of the number of people who live in that country, important in terms of, the political impact the country has. We can find many different interpretations, obviously, but considering the context I'm giving to ChatGPT, here a country is important for my business according to the number of customers we have from that country. Or more in general, statistically, how many times the country appears in this table. And that's probably how ChatGPT interprets the question. Let's see, the answer here is a bit different, right? Let's check the SQL first. It makes sense. Basically, we are counting the number of records, so the number of customers grouped by country, right? And then we sort the result by count, descending limit to, because we only need the first 2 countries. Again, if you are familiar with SQL, this query is correct. And we'll select the name of the country and the number of customers for each. So the answer is not a value as in the other cases. In the previous question we got something like, we got a number, okay? This time it's more a set of values, a record set, we can say. When, after having executed the SQL query, DaDaBIK realizes the result is not a single value, then it does something different with respect to just displaying the value. Let's click here. Here we go, Germany and USA. These are the 2 countries, and that's correct, because all the other countries have just 1 customer. And I can interact with this result exactly as I do with any other table in my application. I can search inside these results. I can create a chart, for example. Let's do something, like very random. I can create a chart. I can generate a pivot table. I can export this data to CSV and other things. What I have done here, instead of showing the result of the query, I have created on the fly, behind the scenes, a view based on that query. And I added the view to my DaDaBIK application. But this is completely transparent for the user. The user will find, the end user will find this view as a page here, under the folder questions, always available. Even the other questions the user will ask will be stored here. Of course, the user can then delete some of them. And they will be always available and auto-updatable. So if the situation changes, For example, I don't know, Italy and South Korea become the two most important countries, this will be reflected here automatically, because that's a view. Every time I click here, the SQL query we saw before, this one, is re-executed. Now, next question is more tricky. Let's move to the sales, because our question is about sales now. Okay. So, which are the three countries that have generated the most revenues? So before continuing, let me add the last element to our system architecture puzzle. When I said I send to ChatGPT this data, well, that was not correct. OpenAI, the company that produces ChatGPT, provides some API that you can use in your application to use their language model. The same language model that ChatGPT is based on, or very similar, I guess. So what I actually did was I created a simple Python application on this computer, the one where I'm running this DaDaBIK application at the moment. This Python application uses the OpenAI API, and the only thing it does is listening, waiting for questions. DaDaBIK can communicate with this application sending HTTP messages, basically saying, okay, this is the question, and the Python application replies with an answer in SQL. Again, using the OpenAI language model. That in turn, DaDaBIK, that SQL statement, executes. That's it. Now, coming back to our question, why is this more tricky? Well, because we don't have the country information here. From this table, we know the customer, but not the country of the customer. Actually, in the table, there is just the ID of the customer. Then DaDaBIK shows the first and last name, but we have just the ID of the customer. Obviously, we can get this information in some way because it's in the customers table. In the customers table, we have the country of the customer. But then we need to pass to ChatGPT information related to more than a table. Okay, so let's see the answer first, and then we'll discuss it. Okay, sorry, I have to type it again. So, which are the three countries that Okay, the SQL provided is perfect. And as you can see, it joins two tables, customers and sales. Then we group by country. And for each country, we sum together the amount of the related sales, of all the sales generated by customers coming from that country. Finally, we sort by total revenue, that is this value we computed here, descending limit 3. That's perfect. If the language model was able to use this additional table with the correct field names, It's because I send it as part of the context to ChatGPT. Well, to the API, OpenAI API. So which tables should I pass? All the tables? The entire database? Well, maybe this would make things slower. Maybe adding non-related information can have a negative impact on the accuracy. I don't know. I haven't done enough tests, but I found a very good compromise. I send the schema of the current table or view, so in this case sales, plus some of the tables or views that have a relationship with this one. In particular, if the current table has one or more lookup field, what is a lookup field? Let me show an example here. Customer in sales is a lookup field. It's a field where possible values are taken from another table. So here I can choose the customers among my 7 customers. This means that there is a one-to-many relationship between these two entities. So when I ask a question about the sales table, probably the customers table is also useful. Therefore, I'll send as a context also information about the customers table. Okay, the next one is even more difficult. Who are the customers who didn't generate any sale? Okay, and once again, the answer is perfect. It joins table sales and table customers using left join, not inner join. So even the customers without sales are included, but they'll have the ID customer in sales null. And I can choose them based on this criteria, based on this filter. That's very impressive. Something more. Is English the only language we can use? No. Let me try Italian. If you follow this channel, you probably know I'm Italian. Anyway, I think you can guess it from my accent. So let's try the latest question in Italian. Chi sono I clienti che non hanno generato nessuna vendita? Wait, let me make it more complex. Chi sono I clienti tedeschi? So the German customers. We add an additional little filter. And it works. I mean, I'm really, really impressed. So we got the same result, but with a small variation, this additional filter. Country equal to Germany, because we added Tedeschi, German, here. Okay, one more example, and then I will show you some limitations I've found. So the example is, can you tell me the phone number of the customer who generated the most revenue? Okay, this is the phone number. The answer is probably correct, but I don't like the way, I don't like the SQL query that has been used to get this result. It's grouping by the phone, and this assumes that phone numbers are unique in the customer's table. Well, this is probably, I mean, in our case, it's correct, but I don't think it's a good assumption. would be better to group by the customer ID, obviously. Okay? Maybe by adding some context about the fact that a field is unique or not, this can improve. But anyway, I wanted to use to show you this example for another reason. And yes, I want to show you that obviously I can change the schema of my database, and that would work anyway, at least to some extent. Let's make an example. From here, from the admin area, data tab, I can alter the schema of the underlying database. For example, this is the customers table, and this is the phone field. Let's try to change the name. Okay, let's add some, random things here, phone ABC. Okay, all right, let's go back here. Okay, there was a missing C here, I guess. Anyway, let me copy and reopen the page. All right, it works, and now it's using the new field name, phone ABC. Okay, correct. However, let's say that I go crazy and I call this field something like, I don't know, Bob. Let's reload again. Well, okay, this is totally unexpected. It works anyway. Wow. So in the tests I made before recording this video, if I used a field name that sounded like a phone number, like phone or phone something, it worked. If I used a different word, a completely different word, it didn't work. But now it's working. I don't send the data, so it can't see, it can't guess the phone field because of the data in the field itself. What I'm thinking is that keeping track of the various questions I send many times the same question about phone, changing always one field name. And for that reason, probably now it realizes that Bob is the new phone field. Wow. Or maybe the model has, in the meantime, the model has improved, and this field set, in this field set, statistically, this is the field Bob that most probably contains a phone number. I don't know. It's it's difficult to guess what is happening. I'm pretty sure that if I start a completely new conversation, I cannot be sure, but probably if I start a completely new conversation, maybe with Bob it doesn't work. But I cannot reset the conversation right now. So generally speaking, I would say your field names must be proper field name for the data they contain. We must say, however, that DaDaBIK has additional metadata. In form configurator, for each field, you can set the content type. Let me show you here. Form configurator, customers, Bob. Okay, content type phone. The content type impacts on few things, including the validation. I'm not passing this information to ChatGPT, so I exclude that this is the reason why it realized that this is the phone field. But if I pass to the language model also these metadata, maybe the accuracy will be even higher. Okay, even if you have very bad field names. Because here I'm saying, okay, this is a phone number, for sure. Now, let me show some mistakes I have found. Well, I'm not sure if I can show you those mistakes, because for the last example, the behavior was different with respect to my test, but let's see. So the first one is not a real mistake. It's just something that I want to show, because it reflects the fact that according to how the sentence, the question is written, the interpretation can obviously change. But this is, something a little bit peculiar. So, what is my oldest customer's email address? So my question was, I wanted to know the email address of my oldest customer in terms of age, right? So that was my intention. So it's john@white.com, age 58. However, the query executed was select email from customers, order by, registration date, time. So this is a different take, a different interpretation on my question. It's the oldest one in terms of registration date, so when the customer has been registered. I would say that is also correct, but this was not what I wanted to get. The thing is that if I rephrase this as what is the email address of my oldest customer, okay, this time the query is correct. I mean, it's the one I wanted to be executed, order by age. So that's john@y.com. All right. So I don't know, question for native English speakers. Is there a difference in the two sentences? Does it make sense to use age in one case and registration date in the other? If from the language point of view it doesn't make sense, probably statistically people tend to use the first form referring to the registration date and the second form referring to the age. That could be a possible explanation. Next tricky example. Let's move to companies. That's another table. And the name of the companies was name starts with A. So the query in this case is not correct. Basically what it's doing is getting the companies whose name starts with AG. I don't know why, but if I add quotes here, the query is correct and I get just Apple. Okay, without quotes, so we can find the answer here. Okay, no items found because no company. Let me show all the items. So we don't have any company whose name starts with AG. Okay, again, I don't know why. Another problem I've seen during my tests that I cannot reproduce anymore. Now it seems to work, but during my tests, at some point it did not work. Basically, I was asking some basic information about customers, like customers whose name started with a letter, something like that, and the filter, the where clause was correct, but it performed an inner join between customers and sales. The inner join was useless, was not required, and the result was that only the customers who had at least one sale were considered because of the inner join, which was wrong. I mean, it was not part of my question. So that was another mistake. And that's it. I mean, these are the tests I wanted to show you. I think we have seen enough for the moment. So now probably the question is, should this module be used in a production environment? My answer is, at the moment, I'm not completely sure. Well, as I said, I'm just testing it. I'm using a trial of the API. The current DaDaBIK version, that is at the moment 11.8 ELBA, doesn't include this feature, but assuming at some point this module will be delivered in the standard version of DaDaBIK, in the standard distribution of DaDaBIK, should we enable it for all our end users? I mean, on one side, a tool like this can democratize knowledge discovery, knowledge extraction. At least for some simple questions, even end users of your DaDaBIK application who know nothing about SQL or database can get their questions answered. And that's awesome. On the other side, we can't be 100% sure about the accuracy of the answers. So maybe an end user could take a decision based on a wrong answer and therefore a wrong decision. It's risky. I don't know, maybe an intermediate solution could be taking track of the questions answered, and periodically, like once a day, a supervisor could check answers and SQL generated to find possible mistakes. Another thing could be, doing additional training based on the specific application. The OpenAI API allows to send some examples in the question, and DaDaBIK could create those examples based on the schema and on the metadata it knows. DaDaBIK knows a lot about your database, the labels, the relationships between tables, the kind of data contained in the fields, something like that. It can be useful, probably. Anyway, I definitely need to do more tests to see the possible limitations and bugs with more complex questions. Okay, it's time for a recap. Let me summarize. In just a few hours of work, I've created this module for DaDaBIK. Let's call it Natural Language Knowledge Extractor, using the OpenAI API, and the results are already pretty good. So I think there is a lot of potential here. I know this technology is not mature. It has limits. I know the possible drawbacks and also the potential danger, at least in some fields. For example, we still have to completely understand the implications of these tools in education. I teach in college and I'm aware of that. I know that students could ask these tools to write their essays, and that's bad, obviously. There are already GPT detectors. I don't know precisely their accuracy right now because things are changing day by day. But I think that at some point we'll have to rethink content creation. So, as I said, I know the drawbacks, but as a computer scientist, I'm really, really impressed by the accuracy of these tools and about how the content generated sounds human generated. My feeling is that we are witnessing a revolution here. At least these are my first impressions. I don't know, maybe then I will do more tests and I will discover many limitations and bugs. However, my first reaction when I saw ChatGPT was, wow, I can't believe this. This is a huge, huge improvement. So that's it. Let me know your opinion. I'm curious about it. And if you want me to do some tests, some particular tests in DaDaBIK, just add them to the comments here. And obviously, if you're not a DaDaBIK user yet and you want to try it, you can visit dadabik.com/try and start your subscription. The first month is free and you can cancel anytime. Or if you prefer, to buy the classic lifetime license, you can also do that. Okay, again, that's it. See you next time. Ciao!